Are you thinking about selling your salon, spa, or barbershop? Well, this is the perfect episode for you. Today, we talk to Kaylee Auger about what's involved, what to think about, and how to get ready. My name's Greg Robbins. This is The Business of Style. Let's get on with the show. Welcome back, Kaylee. It's so great to connect with you once again.
Thanks, Greg. Happy to be back. I'm so glad you're providing all this amazing information for our industry to boost the game.
Yeah, no, we love doing that. That's what we do over here at the BeautyCouncil is we help people succeed in their business and have a successful career. So it's wonderful to partner up with you on this one. So today we're talking about something really interesting, and we are chatting with our members about this as well. So definitely a hot topic, and that is selling your salon or spa. Let's just jump right into it. You're an expert in the financial side of things, or at least the numbers. Give us an idea of like an overall picture of what it means to sell your salon and why you'd want to do it and some of the reasons for selling.
Awesome. Yeah, I think there's so many reasons that you may want to sell. And sometimes you might just want to think about it for a really long time. And that's okay too. A lot of times people are maybe waiting too long to sell. So some of the things that might be going through your mind is, when do I want to retire? Or maybe I want to move cities, or maybe I just want to pursue a different passion. Maybe I just have lost some passion for it. So many reasons why you may want to sell your business. And the idea that we want to share with you today is that we don't want to wait until we're in a pinch to sell our business. We want to start preparing these pieces way in advance. I mean, the longer runway you have to think about these things, better you can set yourself up for a really good, successful sale.
Yeah, totally. There's nothing worse than, scrambling around. It's like moving. You want to be sure that you don't want to do it all on the last day. You want to have your financials in order. You want to be able to sort of dictate the terms of the sale on your terms, not the terms of the buyer ultimately. Give us maybe a background. You've got some experience in selling. Maybe just give us a little bit of a background on your own experience before we dive in.
Yeah, well, I went through the same it's a really emotional journey, really. And I do get a lot of people asking me about that. And I know people are pondering that, salon owners that are thinking like, how do I ever get out of this thing? And I had the same experience. And I remember hearing someone say like, sell while you're on top. Don't wait until things are going down in your business. And for me, it was really just, I don't know, I had these like red blinking signs going off in my mind saying it was time to sell. And I didn't listen then. I ended up selling about 2 years later. And in hindsight, looking back, when I had those blinking signs going off in my mind, right? Our subconscious kind of knows things before we do, before we realize that that's what we should be doing. I look back and I realized that I would have been in a much stronger position had I done it at that time or started preparing it at that time. And so in my story, I have a lot of regrets. It ended up being a really good sale. I found a great buyer, but it was really down to the pinch and really down to the last minute. And that's just stressful. So you want to make sure that you've got the right infrastructures in place that are attractive to a buyer. You want to make sure that you're in a great position to keep it as well if it doesn't sell. I always say a business worth selling is a business worth keeping. So why not, even if you're listening to this and you're not thinking of selling right now, you're just interested in the idea, why not set it up to be appealing to a buyer, because that's going to make it more appealing for you to own at the same time.
That is such a great point. Very often we sort of get things ready for sale just before we sell it, as opposed to actually getting it ready well in advance so that we can enjoy working there and have smooth days and easy financials and simple year ends. It's a great story that you just related to us. So thanks for that. Let's look at it from the perspective of a buyer, maybe from that side. What would make an appealing purchase for a typical buyer? What are buyers looking for when they purchase a salon or spa?
Yeah, most buyers are going to look for a salon that is already turnkey, right? If you're kind of a savvy buyer and you want to go in and acquire a business, you're going to want something that already has a lot of infrastructure in and that is going to continue running in the way that it did. Too much of the weight is on the owner already, and that buyer knows, well, the owner's leaving, the whole thing's going to fall apart. Then that doesn't make it very attractive to the buyer. And so when you put in these infrastructures to make your business more turnkey, it takes a lot of weight off you, which is why it makes it more exciting to own it too. And maybe you'd even decide after doing that that you don't need to sell it because you've got a lot less weight on you. So, for the same reason somebody would want to buy it, you would want to continue owning it.
Makes sense. So you use the word infrastructure. We tend to think of like roads and bridges and stuff like that when we talk about infrastructure. But what is it? Can you just define what infrastructure is in a little bit more details?
Yeah, infrastructure to me is all of those foundation pieces that build that bridge. Exactly, like they build that concrete foundation. They build, the sturdy walls, and what that would look like in a business. I kind of break it down into three stages. And the first stage is really knowing who you are as a business, knowing who you serve, who your market is. That's, what we would call your vision, mission, values, and just knowing what sets you apart and having everything else built off of that. And the next stage, I call that like unshakable foundations, right? You've got these roots in there, you know who you are, and you're building something really special and different from what else exists in the market already. And then the stage number two is that financial fitness, right? You know all your data points, you know your numbers, you can present it to a buyer, you know exactly what are the indicators that can help them grow the business and sell the business, and you know how to bring in more money when you need to, and you know how to tighten it back when you need to. So we call that financial fitness. It's really getting to know all of the salon's indicators, metrics, data, all of this stuff, which doesn't sound very sexy when you say it, but the part about that is sexy is that it empowers you and you get to make really great decisions about your business, and you can make your business look really great on paper. So a lot of businesses on paper just look really messy, which isn't really attractive to a buyer. And then from there, another piece of the infrastructure I like to call success framework. And that is all of your processes. And again, doesn't sound super sexy, but the outcome of it allows you to travel. The outcome of it lets the business not rest solely on the owner's shoulder or solely on one manager. It's how we do everything and how it's set up so that the duties are spread out. We know who's responsible for what. We have everything documented. We have really refined everything so that everybody in the business knows how to run it, basically. Basically, if I was a buyer, I'd like it if you handed me a manual that told me everything I need to know about the business and I never needed to call you again, right? And that would be a business that's packaged up really well. You can be like, here's the manual. It will answer all your questions. You can skip town to the Caribbean and forget you ever had a business. Probably in most situations, that's not what happens. The person who purchases it has a lot of questions, and there's probably a big transition period. So that would be the gap between what not to do and what would make it really clean for the person. So that when I say infrastructure, I'm talking about, having all of those things in place to make it really easy to change hands and almost for you to disappear unnoticed. Imagine that.
I love these three pieces: the unshakable foundation, the financial fitness, and the success framework. All three really good corners of a solid foundation, like you say. And ultimately, I mean, the sale of a salon or spa doesn't really need to be sexy, if I'm not mistaken. It should really be tucked in and buttoned up so that people like lawyers and bankers and anyone who's loaning money for this purchase isn't asking a bunch of questions and feels confident. Am I right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I love to just add that frame for salon owners. We're creative. We want to make things fun. And so, if we can just have fun in the process while we're buttoning everything up for those more serious people out there, then, yeah, that's the way I like to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's true. And you can actually, I always say you can have more fun when you're not worried about things that you're not sure of. So if your operation is smooth and running and there are no huge surprises, then you can actually focus on the more creative aspects of your work, whether that be, I don't know, a photo shoot, some new education, or experimenting with some new products and styles, or techniques and services. Then I think that makes for a great work day. So let's transition over to the whole idea of what are people selling. So there's something, a little terminology here called you can sell on a multiple of profits. Can you unpack that for us and just describe it?
Hmm. Well, a lot of salon owners don't really know what kind of value they have in their business, and they don't even know what they would ask for the sale price or what somebody would pay. And so, the idea of a multiple of profit is it's just a really kind of known way to value a business. And so, maybe a buyer will look at your profit and loss. So that's why we want to have those numbers all in check. And there's ways we can increase that profit. We can really make a lot of the profit fall to that number that they're going to be looking at, just in the way we organize things. And they're going to say, I'm going to pay a multiple of this. And so maybe a multiple times one. So they're just going to pay what the profit was for that year, or times two, or times three, and, so on and so on. And so each multiple would be based on what we just talked about, Greg, like the infrastructure, right? The more infrastructure you have in place, the more multiples. So if you have a manual, if you have contracts, if you have, a bigger client list with phone numbers and emails and all of these things, then that's going to demand a higher multiple of your profit number, than if you didn't have any of those. You would be more likely to get just that one multiple of it.
That's actually a really good point. You are really ultimately selling structure and simplicity. People are going to walk into this operation and there's a whole bunch of work to do anyways, just the transition and the management of people in the place, and whatever else is going to happen. So yeah, definitely if those pieces are in, you can command a higher price. In terms of multiples, I should just add too, like the idea of a multiple helps a purchaser understand how they would pay back the money they paid for the purchase. So if they look at it and go, all right, if I know I'm going to make this amount of profit per year, then if it's a one-time multiple, then after 1 year, I've essentially paid back my purchase price. If it's a two-time multiple, essentially after 2 years, I can earn that money back. So it helps in that sense. Is that correct? Did I
Yes,
get that right?
you got that. Exactly. Yeah.
So real quick, this is kind of a nerdy, geeky part, but it's important for people to understand assets versus shares. Let's just quickly talk around like what the two types of sales structure is in both of those cases.
So, yeah, there's two different ways you can sell. So, you can sell your entire company. So, that's selling your name and your website and everything that goes along with your company, as even down to the corporate structure. You're going to send that, the number of your corporation, that's going to all sell with the business, and you're just going to walk away. Right. So, as a seller, it's most desirable for you to sell it as a company, because you get to just walk away from it and it's all done. Alternatively, you can sell the assets, which means you're selling everything within the business. So, whatever the buyer wants to buy. So, maybe they're going to buy all your inventory and all your chairs, and they're going to maybe even pay you for some goodwill, but they're not actually taking over your company. And so, in that case, the person who's selling is going to have to go and close the company. They're going to have to make sure there's no outstanding filings. So they're going to have a little bit more ripple effect of some work they need to do to really exit that business. So I always think, as a seller, it's more desirable to sell your company. As a buyer, often it's more desirable to buy assets because you're not taking on any liabilities of that company or any past things that could creep up on you, and you're starting fresh with your own company. So there's a lot of different pros and cons. There's different tax advantages. So you need to decide how you want to set that up too, and what kind of sale you're going to be going into, so that you can clearly state that to the buyer and you don't have to get stuck with the buyer demanding things that you haven't thought through yet.
I think it's also important for people to predict or try and determine in advance which type of sale they're going to do. If you're selling shares, yeah, you've got some tax implications to your favor, or maybe not, depending if you've done that before. But
Yeah.
also, you're selling all the skeletons in that closet. So you need to be absolutely certain that everything is clean, and especially when it comes from the perspective of, let's say, taxes or GST or contracts, that sort of thing. Then assets is a simpler sale, and it may make for an easier sale in some respects, but there is a tax disadvantage, again, depending on your particular situation. So kind of works
Mhm.
both ways, pros and cons either side. And but it's good to think of that in advance, right?
Exactly. And just what we started with, a business worth selling is a business worth keeping, right? We don't want all that mess for ourselves either. We don't want like tax payable, and we don't want to have all these debts. And so the more you can clean it up for yourself, the easier it's going to be that day you do decide you want to sell.
That's such a great point. Kaylee, there is so much more to explore. This is a very big topic, and certainly one that we would love to have our members succeed in, because there's nothing more graceful than a great exit, right? And a great entrance, and an even better exit. So let's just give the people here a little heads up. How can people get a hold of you? How can they contact you and reach out to learn more about how you can help?
Oh, thanks, Greg. Well, the easiest way to find me is probably on Instagram at Kaylee Auger. We can pop that link in wherever you share this. And we do offer a free evaluation call to see if you're ready and wanting to set up all those infrastructures that we talked about today. So I'd love to chat with you and find out your goals and your dreams, and just see if you want any additional support. That would be all up to you.
Thanks, Kaylee. I really appreciate it. Talk to you soon. Talk to you next time.
Thanks so much, Greg. Thanks for having me back.